Good day and welcome again, those of you listening and watching us all around the world. We welcome you to another live broadcast. Thank you for joining us here on Luvbay um, station during this hour, which we call the Relationship and Marriage Hour. We are happy that you've joined us like you do almost every Sunday. So we ask that you call a friend, call your significant other, um, call a cousin, a family member, whoever, call them and tell them that they want to tune in today. We have a very exciting topic that we want to discuss, that we want to drop so that you can take a look at and listen to. Also, if you have questions, if you have any concerns, if you have comments, you can always send them to us, and we will do our best to answer those questions and to respond to your comments. But thank you again for joining us for this hour. We're going to be talking about life after the loss of a spouse, and it's so good to have you in the house, Dr. McDonald, my co-host. Greet us, and then I'll come back and introduce our guest for today.
Good afternoon to the audience out there. We are so grateful to be back here with you. And one thing I want to say to our guests, um, if you have any question for our guests in the studio, please send the questions in directly to him. He is the expert on what we are going to talk about. Dr. Alvin and I have a point, and thank God, but would be able to help you very well. If you out there, it's good to be back here on Love Music Talk. Right?
Good. And our guest for today is none other than a brother and a close friend of mine. His name, we are out of the Bahamas, from Nassau, Bahamas. His name is Mr. Vince Martin. Mr. Vince Martin has been my friend from some 30 years. At
Wow.
every, as I look back over my life, and listen, he only looked like he was 35.
He does.
But as I look back over my life at
Okay.
those high moments, at those low moments in my life, Doc, this this brother of mine has been there. He has flown to the ends of the earth to be there with me, and I appreciate him so much. And I have watched him and his wife. I was there. I was best man in his wedding. I have watched him love and cherish um, his his uh, his wife, and his heart was broken. Our hearts were broken, and I wanted during this relationship and marriage hour for him to come and share a little bit of his story, share some of the highlights of his time with Donalika, his wife, and then he will take us through because and let me introduce him now, Mr. Vince Martin. And I want to start off, Mr. Martin. You could tell us a little bit more about yourself, but I want to start off with you just sharing just a little bit with us as to what led how your life changed when you found out about the diagnosis of Alika. You could share that testimony, and then bring us to the last few days, and then we'll talk there. But I just want to put this right here, Mr. Martin. I watched you as you cared for your wife, and I watched you love her through it all. And I think other men need to hear that story from you as to how you were able to do what you did. Um, and we want you to share that with us, Mr. Vince Martin.
All right. Thank you very much, Pastor Alvin, and your lovely co-host. Thank you, first of all, for having me here on your show. And I I'm honored to be here to share a summary, and so
Yeah.
I will go quite fast. Um, Probably will miss out some um,
Mhm.
bits of it because for the sake of time. So I was married back in 2011, and about 2 or 3 months right afterward, my wife was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, and it was in her spine. So it wasn't something that was easily operated upon. So we would have done a number of things. Of course, as Christians, we would have prayed. And of course, we would have been asking God, why us and why her? And, we just got married. We have a wonderful family. We want to start a life together. We've tried to do everything in God's way and, live holy. We both worked in the church for quite a period of time. Um, Given to the church and ministry, as well as helping the church financially, and helping people who attend, and actually having outside ministries in terms of mentorship. So we had a number of things going on. So when the diagnosis came, it was, very uh, devastating, but we still had faith that God would heal. And so we went through a number of process, of various hospitals. In fact, we started off with two hospitals in Florida, and they both looked at us and said, listen, we really can't do anything about this. This is too far gone. She's at stage 4. She'll be dead in a couple of months. So just go and make your final piece. And that was the expert's opinion. And this was back in 2012. Well, continued. Yes, we heard the doctors, but we didn't accept their report. And Donalika was a woman of faith, a strong faith. So she, continued to pray. We listened to the word every day. We listened to healing scriptures. We surrounded ourselves with healing environments. We did whatever um, it was necessary, what people do when they're faced with a grim diagnosis. And come 2013, we finally, and I'm talking about, we attended like 6 hospitals in the United States. We exhausted the 2 hospitals in Nassau. We knew that they could not have helped. They have admitted that, and they referred us. And it's interesting when you go to a big hospital in the United States and they look at you and say, because we cannot do anything, we will pay for you to go to another hospital. And that was
Wow.
our experience. That was at the Cancer Treatment Centers of America in Philadelphia. And they flew us to Johns Hopkins because they said they've called. So we let them do the work. They called around to all of their other big hospitals in the US. And they said, listen, this is one of the most rare form of cancers they've seen. And they said, we'll track down a doctor who can perform a surgery. And that hospital, so I never forgot them. They've changed their name to, I think, City of Hope now. But they were relentless in finding a doctor, even outside of their network, who would be able to perform such a surgery. And that landed us at the Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore. And so, long story short, she had a very miraculous surgery with a robotic arm that went into her back. And it was about a 14-hour surgery. Um, Doctors didn't think she would make it. They told us she had a 20% chance of surviving, and which was one of the best odds we have gotten since she was diagnosed. 20% chance of surviving. That was great. Don't think of that as, I didn't say 80% that. She had a 20% chance of surviving, and we consider that a good, um, because
Good.
everything else we got was she had a 4% or 2% chance of survival. And believe it or not, she survived. More than just surviving, she actually was able to walk, which the doctors were astounded. So she walked out of the hospital. Well, she spent about 6 months recuperating, but she was able to come back to the Bahamas and walk off the airplane. So that in itself, was we believe the hand of God because the doctors said, it's really, we're amazed. So we really don't want to take credit because we're amazed at all of the things that happened in her life while she was under our care. So I think for me, there were some moments where it sort of reinforced that yes, God is working with us. God is listening to us, and I think for a couple years, despite knowing that there are signs that the tumor is returning, um, we kind of knew that we would have to go through a period again where she has to go back into the surgery, and that soon came in 2017, 18, when I was on assignment. I was a banker working in another country, so we had to fly back into the Bahamas for a while, so she could see her family, her parents and siblings and daughter, and then we moved straight into the United States again to start that process of surgery. So through it all, we've really seen some miraculous things happen. And then, of course, fast forward to 2022. This is post COVID, because COVID was a difficult time for us. You couldn't see anyone, you had to keep your mask on. She had several bouts where she had to go into the hospital. And so I think during that time, it is probably out of all of the experiences we've had, um, I guess, and I didn't expect because she bounced back through some of the toughest surgery with 20% odds. So we did expect that she would have survived um, the last ordeal, but she had a pneumonia, she had a number of things, and then I think they found that cancer was spreading throughout the body. It already engulfed the lungs and was going up to the brain. But still, we had faith that God is able to heal. But it didn't happen, and on May it was 13. That was Friday the 13th, I call it, of May 2022, where she would have taken her last breath in the hospital. I wasn't there because, of course, during the COVID restrictions. So, of course, that made it more difficult because throughout the whole time, I was literally at her bedside. Every surgery, every doctor's visit, I was there with her the entire event. I took off vacation and I took unpaid leave. I did whatever. And, and while she had, family members, I realize it's the husband's duty. You've taken this person on as your wife, your spouse. So, you might get upset if the siblings or family members don't pitch in, but it's on you. And you have to do whatever you have to do, whether they pitch in or not. And so that's what I did. So that was, as I said, 2022. She died. And I guess to the point of the show is really what happens after that, eh? Life after that, and you keep living because if you really think about it, um, everyone who is married is going to have to face the fact that their spouse is going to die. It's either you're going to die first or your spouse is going to die first. But if you're married, it's a reality, and if you haven't considered it, you're living in space. And the fact is, the statistics of that is very, very impressive. One out of one will die. One out of every person will die. There's no one that I know of actually escaped death. I think Lazarus even thought he escaped death, but death came back to get him a second time, even after he was raised by the Savior, right? And even the great Savior died. So nobody escapes death. So if you have a spouse, just know that time is ticking, and and it's just a matter of who goes first. And so everyone, so people say, well, Wens, I'm sorry for you, but I'm like, well, don't worry. Who's married is gonna kind of be in my situation. Now it'll be great if your spouse doesn't die for the next 20 or 30 years or maybe 50 years. It'll be great if you both go together, but then your children may not like that because they need one parent around. But nevertheless, um, just know that first of all, you're gonna die, or your spouse is gonna, both of you, but then somebody's gonna go first. The second
Yeah.
thing is love, right? So love is a an action. It's not a feeling. It's not, when somebody says I love you. It's more than just that fuzzy feeling you get in the morning when it's cold and you have somebody to cuddle up to. But it's an action. It's what you do when the person is sick. Because I think the vow that you take, for better or for worse, for richer or poor, on sickness and in health. I don't know if people take that very seriously or understand the gravity of the vows that they take. I know, because it's easy to say, "Oh man, you're sick. I'm gonna move to another place, or I'm gonna get another person, or you can't give me what I want. I'm gonna trade you in." But in a marriage, that should not happen. Not that it doesn't happen, not that people don't do it, but really, if a marriage is based on love, now if it's based on lust or something else, then I suppose as soon as you get sick, your spouse packs up and runs into somebody else's arms. Um, or if you get broke, your spouse leaves for someone who has more money. But if you're there for love, then there's a choice where you stick it through and you go through the pain and you empathize and you sympathize and what they're going through. So I for many moments, and I said to my wife at the time when she was alive that, hey, I wish I was could have feel the pain for you. Because if you understood the kind of cancer she had, it was in the spine. It was a rare form of cancer that didn't allow her to sleep. It didn't allow her to rest. It didn't. I mean, because it was in the nerve center. Um, there was no medication. She took the strongest um, medication I think that the doctors could prescribe. There was from the oxypotent to, I mean, tramadol. I'm telling you, there's some serious drugs on the market, but none of those drugs were able to quell the pain, were able to ease her pain. So at the end of that, you kind of, even though you want her to stay, you realize that she is in total pain and then she's in a miserable place, and it's the point where she's hating her life because of the constant pain and the inability to do things for herself, because at that time she was already paralyzed, sort of like a quadriplegic, having to do everything for her, from bathe her to, yeah, just take full. It's like taking care of a baby, right? And and I know for like me, just like my wife, we never wanted that, and I think when we talked about each other, we are like, if that ever happens, then just let me go. And so we had those
Mm.
kind of conversations because
Wow.
we just didn't. I mean, it's dehumanizing that to even have even your spouse, your child, because you're the parent. You've always been the one who's strong and the one who was in control, right? And now you're a total vegetable. And you're just laying on the bed. You can have a conversation, but you can't do nothing. You can't feed yourself. You can't put on your own socks. You can't move your legs. You can't do anything. And that's
Wow.
and you come from being an independent person. Like my wife was a dancer, so obviously her back and her ability to stand up and dance was of core importance to her, right?
Yeah.
So having a cancer in the spine was really the attack at the nerve center, which she was in like uh, a writer where she could sit down, being a quadriplegic, and write books. No, she was a one who loved to get up and walk and run and move. So all of that kind of weighed not just on her physically, but mentally and
Wow.
spiritually. That really, and then it caused us to ask God questions. It's like, God, why? So I don't
Yeah.
think even in her last days, it wasn't questioning God's existence, but it's like, God, why me? Why? I've done. I've followed your commands. Like David, on whatever sin I would have committed, I confess and I come to you and I lay my burdens on you. Why not heal me? Because I know you can. And so that's the struggle, the struggle that people don't talk about. When you reach this point where it isn't that you don't believe in God, because you believed in him all of this time. You saw him when he healed you, or he had the surgical knife go and miraculously take out parts of the tumor and you were able to walk again. So knowing that he exists isn't the issue. Is like knowing, his question is, why will you not heal me this time?
Yeah.
Why? So
Wow. Wow.
that way is,
I
especially as
really
a
like it.
Christian. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Martin, wow, what a story so far. And
Mhm.
and I want to take maybe about another 10 minutes before we go into the second half of the show, just to ask you this question. I want to start off with this question, and I'm going to open it up to a doc to ask you a question or two. And then on the second half, we want to talk about, okay, what happened after, because everything you said now really is what happened before. And I want to know, I want you to tell our listeners out there what kept you, because I know of situations of husbands and even wives when their spouse was not living up to what their expectations were, that they just bailed out. What kept you going home every day? What kept you staying in the relationship? If you could share that, um, because
Okay.
when I watched you, knowing the story of how you had to turn her every 2 hours, and then you still had that demanding job that you had to go and work sometime 10, 12 hours a day because you had to take times off on the weekend to take her away. What kept you in? Why didn't you just throw in the towel? What what what,
Lovely.
what
Hey,
held you?
that would have been a dream. No, no, it was the mortgage. Maybe that's just a joke. It was the expensive mortgage. I mind you, I worked for the bank that I got the mortgage from, so I couldn't duck them. But
Yeah,
reality,
yeah,
with all seriousness, though, no, I mean that's just a joke. But
yeah.
in all seriousness,
Understandable.
I went. I mean, first of all, what kept us, and me and you, we have, come up through the ranks. We know about, what it means to love a spouse, and what it means to be loved by God, and to be, believers. And I think that's the first thing. My faith grounded, not in a superficial faith that when the rain comes and the tides fly up, then it washes away. But it's a faith that's rooted in the fact that, hey, you're the head of this household, and even if your spouse is in a the state where she can't be a spouse anymore, you still have to be the husband. Even if she can't fulfill the duties of a wife, your job is still to be the husband. I mean,
Wow.
this is something that God has joined together, right? So
Yes.
if God hasn't separated it, then I mean, He still wants you to be the husband. And so He didn't give me permission to go and get another wife or get a girlfriend, or in the Bahamas we say get a side chick. So I didn't get any one of those, because um, I was still working in His will. I still was believing that He would heal, and of course, there's no point in me trying to ask God to do something miraculous while I'm messing around out there, because I'm expecting that He would be healing her anyway, and she would be restored and given me back whole, as if nothing has ever happened, or if if she was, as if she was never sick again.
Yeah.
So, and if that didn't happen, I think, I got the assurance that if you need to get another woman, there'll come a time when that will happen, which is
Mhm.
after the death of your spouse. If I don't heal her in the way you want her healed, but she's healed in the sense that she is now died in Christ, then that's your opportunity to go back, to the drawing board, so to speak. But you keep your faith, you keep your vow, and I will reward you.
Mhm.
for your faithfulness despite the hard times you go through. So even as you point out, having those times where I come home from work and I'm tired, but I still have to do my husband duty in terms of taking care of her and staying up with her, reading. We'd sometime like this Christmas season. She loved Christmas, right? So we would be
Yes,
watching
loved it. Loved it.
yeah,
Yes.
Netflix or the Hallmark channel, right? So I'd be sitting with my work from on my computer, and falling asleep doing work, but talking with her because I know this is o'clock. I got to get back up and go to the office and smile like nothing has happened, so that I don't get temptation or any other things from people around. So those were the kind of things that kind of keep me. Just getting some feedback. Hold on one second.
Yeah, I'm hearing that there's a change something. I don't know what
Yeah,
happened.
sorry.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, somebody was calling. Yeah. So those were the things that kind of is the fate, and then and we have a daughter, and so it's also kind of being an example to her. So I wasn't doing it for any for what I was doing it just because I believe it was my obligation um to the faith that I proclaim and profess among everybody else. And your faith comes alive when you have challenges that test your faith. Otherwise, how do you know you have strong faith unless you go through? How do you know you really have faith until you have challenges that rock? How do you know a ship is built out of quality quality material and built with the best possible craftsmanship until you test it in a storm and you realize that the ship can withstand the test of time. And I think that's what our faith is like. And so the Lord tested it. And one last thing I'd add to it, our pastor, Pastor Miles Monroe, at the time, I called him a couple times and I said, "Man, Pastor, I think I'm at the end of my rope, man. I am ready. I want to throw in it." So it's not, and I'll be to you, my brother. It's not that I didn't ever think about throwing in the towel, because that would be superhuman, right? To say, I'd be misleading if I said I never thought about it, right? But
Yeah.
uh, I remember calling him, and I might have told you that, but I
Yeah.
remember calling him one day, and he said, and he prayed with me. He spent about an hour talking and praying with me. He said, your faith is only as good as the test that it survives. So, um, don't let don't say your faith is only as good as healing, and that's it, because you have stronger faith in that. So now that you've seen where this can go, you still your faith has to outlast. And you can go, I guess, the scriptural reference in James, um, when he says, count it joy, my brothers, when
All
testing
the
comes.
diamond temptations. Yes.
Yeah, because that's a part of the testing of your faith, and that is necessary to prove the quality of your faith, that you are
Mhm.
grounded in the truth of the gospel. And so, yeah,
Mhm.
and that's in a nutshell,
Mhm.
um,
Dr.
what I would
McDonald.
say.
Wow, you've endured a lot, and I just
Mhm.
talked this morning about um, the the two builders, the one that built on the sand, the one that built in on the rock. They both had the experience of rain, flood, and wind, and simply saying that you go through things, even if you are a believer, if you're not a believer, you go through. So it's how you deal with the problem, how you deal with it, that helps you to overcome. But one of the things that I would like to know, Mr. Martin, is the day after. she was buried. What was, how did you feel? You know, you're starting all over again. What was the feeling like for you?
Yeah. That- that's an interesting um, question, having jumped all the way to the day after the burial. Let me actually add something that I left out. What's also important when you're going through these things is to have good friends, godly friends. Like, I mean, like the Pastor Alvin there, man. You know, to have people who, well, there was a community, because, and that's why God gave us community. You know, because we're not supposed to be going through these things alone. Even though, some of us think, we're Superman, and but God created Adam, and he gave Adam Eve, and he said it's not good for man to be alone. And so when you're going through things, you need a community. You need to go through it with friends, family members. If family members don't ain't living up to your expectations, having good friends you can feel vulnerable with, you can scream at, you can cry on, you can say, "Hey, man, let's go down by the fish fry." Well, yeah. And just have some Vitamalt or something else if you need. But just having that community is a critical part. And so the day after the funeral, I can't tell you exactly. I knew that even the day of the funeral was kind of numb. I remember going to the repast at a cousin's house, sitting down. Everybody, I had my friends, their friends, blah, 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 blah. And I remember walking out. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. I mean, I told our daughter that I could step out, but I know she was there. She has a husband and two kids now. But I just said I'll step out, and I called a friend and a couple of friends, and because I didn't want to be around the large crowd anymore, because I didn't have a chance to really cry during the whole process, because I mean, I guess I was crying inside, but I didn't cry during the whole process of the funeral arrangements and the death and all of that stuff, because there was dealing with the funeral home, dealing with the newspapers, dealing with national insurance and the debt, dealing with my office, trying to get the time off. And so, everything was just constantly. It was constant work. So I remember during that process of the funeral, just calling a friend and said, "Hey, man, I just need to get away." And they say, "What do you need to do? You need to get drunk?" I said, "Boy, if I wasn't so weak, I'd drink." But in the abundance of all the food, I wasn't hungry. I didn't have an appetite. For days, I didn't have an appetite. And the day after um, the the funeral, I mean, I probably stayed in bed that entire day. Um, you know, just hugging onto her pillow. Having the onset of the reality that she ain't coming back. There,
That's it.
she
Yeah,
she ain't laying in that bed no more.
right.
I think it set in. It set in after that you
Hmm.
know she I got on, and I just recently take down. I mean, all her clothes was in the closet, everything, as if, and looking at all of that, and you're like, wow, this is a life I shared with someone who isn't going to be coming back to share it with me.
Yeah,
So that was the day after. That was probably the hard day. Um, like the hardest day, as people say, because the day of the funeral, you're still kind of numb,
that's
and
right.
you're busy, putting up appearances,
Yes,
smiling, even though people don't tell you have to smile, but people waving, everybody shaking your hand. You have no idea but you're not, you don't look like a mess on the day of the funeral. It's the day after.
exactly. Exactly. And you know, that is the part that a lot of people, when you go through the death of a loved one, the first part of it is okay. And that's why I jumped there. Because the first part, you have everybody, they're calling, they're cooking, they're bringing everything. But it's that day
Yeah.
after the funeral, you're all alone. So you're
Yeah.
left there to try regroup again, you know. So going through that, that's when you need people more. That is why I've started visiting after the funeral
Mhm.
because you need
Mhm.
people. And then, you're starting a life all over again, something that a new normal. So
Yeah.
it's not easy. But I want you to help our listening audience. Dr. Alvin, you, you know, because folks who are going through this season in their life, and it's only for a season. You miss that person and they've gone to, be with the Lord. And yes, we definitely miss them and they cannot be replaced. But
Can you all hear
life
me?
still goes.
I can
Yes.
hear you. Mm.
Okay. You're in. Yeah. So, Doc, are you able to talk?
Mr. Martin, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
we can.
we can hear you. Can you hear us? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Uh, Pastor
Okay,
Al,
he's in and
Dr.
out.
Al. Okay, Dr. Alvin. Alvin.
Okay,
Okay.
he's gonna come back in.
Yeah.
So, um, for persons who are going through,
Can
for
you
some
all hear
Mhm.
me?
people, now, yeah, you can talk if you can. We can hear you,
No, no.
but you're
Okay,
in.
go on, go on. No, yeah, I'm back in. Okay, good.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. For persons that are walking this road, you know, how do you think you can help them to be able to, the fact that you are for better? This is a hard one for me because I've not been there, but I can feel
Hmm.
what others may go through. I can only empathize with you. Um,
Hmm.
so, but there are persons that may be listening that are also going through this moment. What are some of the things they can do to begin to move forward? Because if you don't intentionally go forward, you can stay right there.
Correct. Yes, and that's a good point. Well, first of all, and I would tell anyone, you have to get therapy. And therapy isn't something that people normally do because they think, oh, I'm crazy, or people think something's wrong with me. And you know what? If something's wrong with you, so what, right? But therapy is for you to see yourself in the mirror because sometimes you don't know your own behaviors. Now, you may have a good friend like Dr. Evan, who's a therapist or a counselor, but I this is what I say even with Christians who have lost a spouse. You can do your church therapy, and that's fine. But you could also do your, I'd say, secular therapy. Go to and speak with a secular therapist. Um, and at one point, I couldn't sleep, so I would have had to escalate from a therapist to a not I'd say a psychiatrist. That's the P word that nobody really likes to say because there were after that there were anxiety attacks because for 12 years you and my wife was fantastic, so we enjoyed sleeping next to each other, right? We had a lot of fun together in the good years. We traveled and we hung out. She was like she was cool. I mean, so this wasn't just because I know some people when I talk to them and they say, "Boy, my spouse is sick." They said, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that." They say, "No, man, I'm just waiting for her to go."
Whoa. But you're
Well,
serious.
you know,
Oh man.
yeah.
Oh
I mean,
man.
not everybody love their spouse, and I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes they realize this is a mistake, and
Wow.
one of us, and it's too expensive to get a divorce. So, you know.
Wow.
But no, yeah. So they said so, but so I just put that out there because my wife, I wasn't like waiting for her to go, right? So
No.
and that's the backdrop, right? Because now that she's gone, And so I don't just lose a spouse in terms of marital relations, but I lose that friend that we could stay up 2 o'clock in the morning playing Monopoly or some other game in the bed, um, or 2 o'clock cuddling up watching Lifetime or whatever. Um, so I needed therapy for that because that was a massive change in my daily habits.
Yeah.
Um, that was a massive having this person that I could come and talk to every night. Now this person is just not longer there. And so I sat, and then I was so used to just getting 3 to 4 hours sleep and so after she's dead, I'm still getting only 3 to 4 hours sleep because my body clock is already adjusted, no matter how bad that is. No matter unhealthy it is to have only 4 hours sleep, I'd already adjusted to that. So I now had to go to, we need a psychiatrist who could prescribe you pills. And so he had to say, take
Yes.
some anxiety medication like Ambien or something to help you because I was anxious immediately afterwards because I didn't know what to do with myself. Now I could sleep for 6 to 8 hours, and that was unheard of. I didn't know how to get there. So, and then I'm like, this emptiness. How do I deal with this? This isn't like it isn't just I could just pull in a friend, or pull in my mother or brother and say, fill this void. This was a unique void created by a spouse.
Yeah.
What else? You even can't pull in a girlfriend to fill that void. That is unique.
Yeah.
So, I would have talked to one of my pastors and they say, well, pray about it. And I always have this thing where people like say, pray about everything. And I'm like, listen, there's reality, right? We can pray about that tsunami coming, or we could do some actual practical measures about the tsunami. You see a hurricane coming, you could pray about it, or you could batten up your house.
That's
So
right.
there are some practical solutions. So while you say pray about it and Jesus will fill the void, get therapy. That
Hmm.
is critical to you getting back onto your track. Like you said, Doc, it's a new normal.
Yeah.
Um, and therapy helps you to realize that it is a new normal. Otherwise, you will still be trying to get back to that old way that do no longer exist. And only you know that it no longer. Everybody else know that it don't exist except you. And
Yeah.
until you have a good therapist to say, Vance, hey, that don't exist no more. Um, those clothes, you don't need them clothes no more. No, she ain't gonna wear them no more. You could give them away now. I know you just buy that nice dress for her, but what's the point in keeping it in the closet? She
Yeah.
ain't coming back to wear that. Is and so you got to release, and in order to move on, you have to release, right? You have to release the past. Um, Not to forget the past. That's a different thing. So when I say release the past, it doesn't mean you have to forget the past,
That's right.
but it means that you have to relinquish all of those things you're holding on to that will
Hmm.
keep you from moving forward into a future. And so that's my
Wow.
answer to your question.
That is
Wow.
good. That is good.
That is very good. Very good.
Yeah. Because
Mr.
Dr. Albert,
Martin, we are winding down, Doc. We are winding down um, with our time here. And I have two questions. I'm going to ask you both of them. And you take it however, Mr. Martin, you want to take it. You answer them in whichever order you want. My first question has to do with okay, you you have gone through all of that grief and all of that struggle. Um, how do you bring yourself to love again?
Mhm.
Because now the level of hurt, Dr. Miles Monroe, in a sermon that I heard him preach, he talked about how death and divorce are similar. Only thing divorce is worse because you could see the person and he talked about the tearing of the soul. And I know what it is to lose someone, and I struggled with, should I love again?
Mhm.
Because what if this happens again? How do I deal with this again? And then my second question is, once you have overcome that hurdle, if you ever overcome that hurdle, um, is there some guilt that I am not being true to what was?
Mhm.
And how do you battle that? Because you have some people who are stuck in the past because they are riddled with guilt that
Mhm.
if I go forward, then I am not honoring something of the past.
Okay. All right. So, Dr. Eben, you're forcing me to tap into my legal brain now for that question. So, first question, I like
Oh,
that. I like it. I like it. With respect to what Dr. Monroe says about divorce versus death. And it's so true because I mean, I would have preferred, yeah, death is final. And I know my wife isn't driving around with someone else, picking up the kids, and I have to, look from a distance. But she's gone
mhm.
on, to her reward. Whereas divorce, you keep seeing the pain or the source of
Yeah,
the pain, and so that's a very true statement. Um, but to your question, I mean, you say, well, why the pain of moving on? And my question was, why not move on? Because I had such a great relationship. I don't see why I wouldn't want to do this again.
oh
Because
wow.
if God has allowed me to see what love really feels like in that short space of time that I had her, where we had even in sickness, we had a wonderful marriage. And that was amazing because I guess the enemy would think that, oh, when you strike it with sickness, but we were always on the same accord in our marriage,
Yes,
even
yes.
with the sickness.
That I can vouch for.
And so I look at that as something joyous. So I would want to experience that again because it was a pleasant experience, not the sickness, but even in the sickness, we had a pleasant experience, if you understand what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah.
So
I
because
understand.
of that, I would want to look forward to doing it again. And now to the other question of being guilty. Well, what does the Bible say about marriage? If I move on the facts, on the strictly legal facts, the Bible says, and the marital vow says, not just the Bible, but the legal vow is till death do us part. So
Mhm.
as long as she was alive, there would have been guilt if I was, moving on with somebody else. But she's dead. I mean, she's gone. So I have lived out the vow. I'm now released. I am no
Mhm.
longer tied to the vow, not only in God's eyes, but in the eyes of the law. I am
Mhm.
free
Yes.
because the vow has been fulfilled. It wasn't broken, it was fulfilled. The
Mhm.
death of a spouse breaks or fulfills a vow
Mhm.
because that's the vow you took before the priest or the
That's
pastor.
good.
Yeah. So
Powerful.
once
That's good.
once the vow has been fulfilled, you are free. There is no condemnation in Christ because you are free to move on to create another vow. Now, if this person dies, but that ain't for you. That's God's great providence. Because if I live life, I'd never come out of my house. But guess what? There's still a meteor could come and kill me in my house, or somebody come drop through the window and shoot me in my house. The way things going, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So to live in fear of you marrying someone else and they dying, or because you might die before them. I
Mhm.
mean, it is nonsensical at this stage because anything can take you out. I mean, and there have been a number of. I've just told my doctor just told me her brother, his wife, just dropped down and died, and these are people in their 40s, right? just dropped down and died, collapsed, heart attack. I mean, it's a reality, but fear should not be what keeps us from getting back into a relationship if that's what we want. If we don't want that, that's fine, and say that that's what you don't want. But if it's something you want, don't let fear stop you from going once you fulfill your vow. That would be my answer to your question. You have
Brilliant.
no obligations, no condemnation um, any longer because you have fulfilled the vow, and you've honored God and the law
That's good.
in fulfilling the
And
vow.
your spouse. And your
And your
spouse.
spouse, right? So even if my daughter or my family come, I said, well, I did my part, and it's time for me to move on, to be happy, and to enjoy marriage because I mean, I really, really, really would have loved to enjoy marriage for the next 50 years with this person, but that wasn't the way it worked out. But I'm still here and I'm still alive and well.
Mhm.
So I don't think God wants me to just sit there and
Find a
not
way.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's my answer.
Okay.
That,
Dr. McDonald?
that's pleased to hear that because
Mhm,
Dr. Alvin feeling that
mhm,
I move forward with the child that
mhm,
is gone. What people feel that they're doing some wrong.
mhm,
I love it. You make once you fulfill vow for better, for worse, for sickness, and so forth. And even
mhm,
that is, I believe people need to hear
mhm,
that you're no longer obligated to the family of that spouse
mhm,
because sometimes they want you to go get married, yeah, so or they soon, you know.
mhm.
And I think that's one of the other question I would ask, you know, how soon is too soon, you know, because
Well,
there are some people that 1 year and they say, oh, that is too soon. How soon is
mhm.
too soon?
Well,
The
that's
next
a
day.
question I had grappled because I've had a friend who is around my age. Well, he's yeah, like so he's 40, upper 40s to 50. Um, but he had three children. His wife died, and you know what? He got married about 6 months afterwards. Now that led to all kind of speculations as to whether he's having a little affair with Ben, blah blah. And so I said to him, I said, I thought it was too soon. So if there's such a thing as too soon, well, some people say there's no rule, and that's true, right? There's no rule book to say it's too soon. And my personal, I wouldn't have gotten married if I found someone within the next 6 months. But his situation, he pointed out, he said, buddy, you single. I mean, we have a daughter and she's an adult, right? So he said, listen, I got two small kids and I needed a mother for those kids right away because I work through the family islands and I travel back and forward. So his situation kind of compelled him for that situation that he's decided I can't go too long without having um, not just a spouse, but some, temporary or not temporary, but step parent or mother to help me look after my children. And since I found a woman who was willing to do that, and she wasn't about to pack up and run away, I couldn't take the chance of her moving on to some other fella. So that was his justification. Um, if I was in the same situation, maybe, but I am thank God I wasn't in the same situation. So for me, so I just use that example to say, so 6 months, based on his justification, it was fine. Now, I mean, for me, it's been like about 3 years. I guess
Yeah.
that is a bit, that definitely is time to move on. I would think I would say definitely beyond like a year and a half because I think there's a time for healing. So in the first year, you are healing. and actually coming up to the anniversary, because my wife's birthday would have just gone a couple weeks back, and the wedding anniversary was in September, and so all of these things, and so when you look at that and you say, okay, am I ready to move on? Am I ready to get rid of all of her stuff? Am I ready to bring someone else into this house? And am I ready to be able to kind of like say, hey, this was that, but you're, and so yeah, I think I'm at that stage. Sure. Is there a timeline I would say to your show so that a reader could kind of say, well, it's a 2-year period? I wouldn't it wouldn't be a hard and fast prescription, but
Yeah.
definitely I would say you would want to take at least a year to yourself to grieve. You know what I did, Doc, in the last, and Alvin knows this, in the last 2 years. So I decided to do some crazy stuff, right? So I signed up for a doctoral program in economic law and philosophy. I mean, I know the thing that keep me up at night, but I'm already used to being up at night, and I won't take no more Ambien. So but so I signed up for stuff that I wanted to do before I got married, but I didn't do. And then I traveled a lot. I went, to the Africa, Holy Land, whatever, So I kind of, explored myself, kind of, spend time with myself, because you know what? You shouldn't be in a rush to get married again if you haven't taken time for yourself, yourself, to know what you want. That's why I told you therapy is so important, because after speaking with the therapist and saying, getting in connection with who you are and what you need to do, it also helps for you to take time for yourself and to love yourself, and to pat yourself on the back and says, you've gone through a rough period, and you've gone through a rough marital, experience. So, and you've survived without going crazy or cussing nobody or throwing the hammer at somebody. So, pat yourself. You didn't curse God. Me and you was upset with God at times, and you was a little, pouting your mouth and stuff, but you still realize God is God, and you
I
didn't
like
fall into, So yeah, you had your little temper tantrums, you had your little attitude, you skipped church a couple months, but you love yourself. And once you know that you've gone through that period where you love yourself and you are whole, because the open, you can't, this is important, so I'll say this even though I know time is gone. You can't rely on another person to make you whole. You can't go looking for that other person to
That's a
complete
good
you.
point. That's a
Okay?
good point right there.
That's gonna cause divorce in
Yes,
your second
yes.
marriage. If you sit back, try to get the other person to make you feel better. So you need to spend time becoming that single whole individual again when you got married the first time. And once you get that back, you'd be doing that new person a disservice by giving them the broken you and saying, this is the broken me. You got to accept me the way I is. No, baby. Go get healed.
man.
And then,
Listen, that is so
That is so powerful.
significant.
mm,
You really can say that.
yeah,
I don't want to take over. Go ahead.
yeah.
Well, Doctor Doctor McDonald, what a time we've had today with Mr. Martin. Oh my, what nuggets you have shared. Listen, and I like that last part. I like that last point that there really is no set time or when is the right time. But the right time is after you spend time with yourself and come to
Mhm,
healing. For some people, that might be 6 months. Some
mhm,
people that might
right.
be 6 years.
Yeah.
However long it takes, you do what it takes to get healed because you don't want to enter another relationship broken because
hmm
then that then will lead to a broken relationship and
Yes.
that's not what you want. So you want to be healed. What thank you so much.
hmm
I want to say Dr. Martin.
Yeah. One of these days,
So,
hopefully, if I finish.
so, so, we thank you so much for sharing with us. Um, um,
Hmm.
wow. Boy, I wish we can bring you back. You need to let us know when you are free, that you could come in and share with our listening audience, letting them know that listen, there is life after a tragedy.
Hmm.
You can move forward and you can behold and you can see greater. As long as you're alive, there is still greater that can come. And
Hmm.
Dr. McDonald, before let's give Mr. Martin about 15 seconds to say any closing thing that he wants to say, and then Dr. McDonald, you can say your closing, and then we can move on out of here.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Eben. Just to say thank you and Dr. McDonald for hosting myself. It's been a pleasure to share. I don't think I have shared this much on my wife's passing. Not because of the lack of opportunity, but I mean this is Dr. Eben's show, so I feel comfortable. So all of the revelations and all of the things I said, yeah, I probably wouldn't have been comfortable saying it anywhere else because I know here is home because
Yes.
my good friend is here. So I thank you for that opportunity to share. And yeah, it's a ministry for anyone who wants to talk about the death of a spouse. Feel free. Reach me through Dr. Heaven, and we'll be happy to talk more strategically if they want to, and see how we can. God is about restoration and redeeming. He wants us to redeem the time, and I think He wants us to fulfill His will. And if that means we have to get married and work with someone to do that, then we do that. But I think overall, look at what's God's will and look at our part in God's will. And if that is what it is for, then you will do it. That's my thoughts.
Amen.
Wonderful. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just love this, Dr. Hepburn. And, there are so many more questions that I have,
Mhm.
you know, but time does
Next
not
time.
permit it. Time doesn't permit it. But I trust that you are available for another
Yeah,
part
sure.
to
Sure
this,
thing.
because there's
Hmm.
still a lot that people would like to know. Um,
Hmm.
because I know persons that are still going through, and like you say, the 2 years, 6 months, 3 years. Some people take much longer, but
Yes.
I just love the fact that we can hear it from directly from the horse's mouth and not from us who haven't been there, you know. But
Mm.
thank you so, so
He's
much.
done calling you a horse.
Listen to your friend. Listen to your friend. So we would like to have a part two to this because there are still some more questions, and I believe our audience are right there wanting more too. So we um
Mhm.
we will have you
Okay.
back if next week is fine, Doc. Why not?
Why not?
Um, next
That's
week.
up
Next
to
week.
Mr. Martin or the week
Yeah,
after.
I think next week may be possible. If yeah, I don't foresee. Trying to remember offhand, but we could confirm. But the next week is quite possible.
Okay,
I don't have my calendar in front of me, so. But if it isn't, then
Yeah.
I'll come back and let you know.
right. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so
Hmm.
much, Doc.
Yes. So thank you guys, and have
Very
a
So
good.
we want to
wonderful.
say thank you to our listening audience. You have been listening and watching the Relationship Marriage Hour with your host, Dr. Maria McDonald, and myself, Alvin Hepburn. And our special guest today is Mr. Um, Vince Martin, a lawyer and an attorney. He's working on his PhD. He's a professor at the University of the Bahamas and a joint professor in law. He is well educated. Uh, he's a renowned person, if you ask me, and it's so nice to have him with us. And I'm excited that he will be coming back. And I say to you, join us next time as we further discuss life after the loss of a spouse. Be blessed and have a great one. Till next time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Hold on for us, Mr. Martin.
Oh,
Yeah, you don't go yet.
oh, okay.
Yeah. We're waiting for Theo to turn us off.
Hmm. Hmm.
I guess he stepped away. Did you reach him, Dr. McDonald?
Trying to reach him right now.
Okay. Oh, I guess we could still be talking.
I know, right?